Hi everyone, welcome to the BioEdge.
When we make an intercontinental comparison of termite ecology, particularly focusing on Australia and Southern Africa, we find a rather strange situation in that termites appear superficially to be extremely important in Australia, but the consumers of termites, the animals that eat termites, tell us the opposite picture. They tell us of a prey base that is very much wanting. Whereas in Africa, where termites are not as conspicuous in some ways as they are in Australia, we have extremely impressive termite-eating animals, indeed world-beating ones, that seem to speak of a greater productivity and reliability of the termite prey base, despite the fact that the termites seem in some ways inferior to the Australian termites. So let's just flesh out that puzzle a little bit. In Australia, termites are prominent in at least two ways. Firstly, the tallest termitaria anywhere on Earth occur in Australia, particularly in the form of the 7-meter plus termitaria of a species of termite, which occur in parts of the Australian tropics. Now, these are truly enormous termitaria, and there's certainly nothing in Africa in the sense of a termitarium that can approach their sheer size, even though the spires of macrotermes, the fungus culturing termite in Africa, can be taller than that, reaching about 9 meters. And certainly macrotermes in Africa can construct far larger earth mounds. But in terms of the strict definition of a termitarium, Australia has it in the sense that it's got by far the biggest termitarium anywhere. And that includes not only Africa, but also South America. So in terms of sheer, scenic landscape value, the photographs you can take in northern Australia of people and vehicles, posed next to enormous termitaria, are without peer globally. Secondly, because of the lack of grazing mammals in Australia relative to Africa, there's a tradition in the literature that suggests that termites have, in a sense, taken over from mammals and perform comparable ecological roles, particularly in the sense of eating grass. And this is truest in the tropics of Australia, where you have lush-looking, well-watered savannas and woodlands over a large part of the northern regions of Western Australia, the Northern Territory, and Queensland. And in these lush tropical savannas, there are vanishingly few large herbivorous mammals. Even kangaroos are virtually absent over most of these areas. And so it's tempting for Australian ecologists to assume that, we don't really know why the mammals have failed to this degree in tropical Australia, but the termites kind of fill in for them by being particularly voracious, productive consumers of the kinds of resources that mammals would otherwise eat. Now, the trouble with that last interpretation is that the consumers of termites in the form of ant-eating or termite-eating mammals don't verify it. In that same region in northern Australia, where you have supposedly all these termites, and where you certainly do have these enormous termitaria of Nasuti termes triodii, there are basically no noteworthy termite-specialized myrmecophagous vertebrates. There's certainly no bird that specializes on eating termites in the form of the workers and soldiers. And when it comes to mammals, the only possible mammal that does that is the echidna, which is widespread right throughout Australia, including the far southern island of Tasmania. There's nothing particularly common about it in northern Australia. And everywhere in Australia, the echidna is fairly sparse in its population densities. And at the end of the day, is a modest-sized mammal of about 4 kilograms with a remarkably slow metabolism. So it's really not a powerful consuming force. As opposed to Africa, where you have thoroughly remarkable mimicophages in the form of the aardvark, which is the largest specialized insect-eating mammal on the planet, and in general is as massive as a human being, 50, 60 plus kilograms. And you have several less extreme but also noteworthy mimicophages, such as the giant pangolin in certain habitats. And then you have the aardwolf, which is a small hyena of about 10 kilograms, but is by far the largest specialized termite-eating mammal on Earth, and more remarkably specializes on just a few genera of termites, and has a fairly wide distribution in southern and eastern Africa. So between the aardvark and the aardwolf, the aardvark widespread through Africa from the Cape in the south through to Cairo in the north, and the aardwolf fairly widespread in the drier parts of southern and eastern Africa. You have extremely large and quite rapidly metabolizing and rapidly breeding mammals that really suggest that what the termites are doing in Africa must be extremely productive and reliable in order to feed such specialized and demanding consumers. So that's the essential problem, is that on the face of it, Australia would seem to be the kingdom of termites. But in terms of the functional indicators, the consumers themselves, because they're giving you an insight into the actual levels of activity of termites, it seems that Africa is very much more impressive in terms of its termite ecology. And we focused in this particular bio-bullet on a two-species comparison, just to make this point. We're comparing the aardwolf, this aberrant small termite-specialized hyena of Africa, with its closest marsupial counterpart, which is the numbat. And the numbat is a small animal. It's mongoose-sized. It used to be more widespread than it is, but it was never found in tropical Australia. And it's virtually extinct now because its reproduction and growth are typical of marsupials in being much slower than those of placentals, such as the aardwolf. Bearing in mind that the aardwolf is a member of the Hyenidae, which is one of the more slow-growing and breeding of the carnivora. So the point we're making is that when you focus on the aardwolf in Africa and the numbat in Australia, these two species really epitomize, if you like, the general pattern, which is that there's something about Australian termites, despite their ostensible abundance and diversity and sheer size of the termitaria they make, that makes them remarkably unable to support specialized termite-eating large animals. Whereas in Africa, where termitaria are not so large, and in some ways the termite community is inferior to that in Australia, you somehow have the kind of productivity and reliability that is able to support not one, but several large specialized termite-eating mammals all in a given area. And we have our suggestions as to why this ecological difference exists, but that's a topic for another day. And until then, we'll leave you with that delicious thought of, why are these continents so divergent in this particular way? And we look forward to seeing you for another item. And until then, bye.